Hello and welcome to the Movie Arc, brought to you by the ARK of E Network. My name is Noah, and I am here with a very special guest. I don't know when you're hearing these, so this might be the first of this little mini-series that we're doing together. But without further ado, a huge part of the network, a co-host of Bending Not Breaking, one of the most successful shows on the network over on the TV Arc, Mr. Sunshine Mayfield joins me today via phone. Say hello.
Oh, hello.
Hello, sir. And what are we doing today, Sunshine?
Well, I believe, based off of our conversation prior to this, and I hope this is the case, that we are going over our top 20 movies of the decade. Top favorite movies. Not best, but favorite movies of the decade.
What? Oh, okay. So
is that right?
We're not reviewing Midsommar, the director's cut? Because that's what I was prepared for.
I didn't say we weren't doing that.
No, that was really just a plug for our earlier episode. You've been on the Movie Arc for the first. That was your maiden voyage, if you will, if we want to keep the boating analogies going. Yeah, I think that was the first time you've been on. And again, I don't know what people have heard, but the plan is, you and I so far, this is some behind-the-scenes magic. You guys are probably hearing this in November, December, I'm assuming. We have already recorded our top 20 albums of the decade, of the 2010s. Woo-hoo! So you can head over to the Music Arc, theoretically, to hear that right now, because we might kind of lead with that one, depending on when I get it edited. But regardless, stay tuned across all of the feeds, because we're doing this also on the TV Arc, our top 20 favorite TV shows. And then we're also going to do performances, which will be, open season. We can go movies or TV. So that'll be a crossover pod. We'll do half on the Movie Arc and half on the TV Arc. So lots of fun stuff happening here at the end of the year and the end of the decade. So without further ado, we're here to talk about our favorite movies of the last 10 years. Again, we like to stress at the top of these episodes, favorite, not best, not best. You may be very offended. You may be highly offended. Let us know. You can email thearkofe@gmail.com. You can yell at us on all of our social media. We'll tag all that at the end, or you can check the show notes. But let us know. We want to know what your favorites are as well. But again, these are just the movies that mean the most to us. This is not a reflection on your taste. This is just our taste, okay? We're not saying these are the best. But
if you are super offended, Noah has actually said that he would be willing to bare-knuckle box you in a Food Lion parking lot. So wherever, if you really just upset about our list.
I think that's my brother. I think you're mistaken.
Oh, okay.
Gavin volunteered to fight anybody that disagrees with any opinions put forth by any ARK of E Network staff. Okay. So, without further ado, you're the guest as usual, so I'm going to let you just decide. Do you want to lead things off, or do you want to kick it to me?
Oh, I can lead things off.
Well, do it. What's number 20?
Number 20 for me, Den of Thieves. Den of Thieves. Sorry. Nope.
I can't even play into the bit at this point.
I know nothing about it, and I've never seen it. But at this point, I feel like we mention it every episode. So
I think that should be a runner for sure. Just if you're checking in, still haven't seen it. Still haven't seen Den of Thieves. Not seen it.
I'm gonna give you a little bio. We're talking about a 17-year-old who navigates his own survival amongst an explosive criminal family, and the detective who thinks he can save him.
Whoa. Right off the bat, huge blind spot on my part. Is this a 2010 film, sir?
This is a 2010 film.
It is right on the cusp, and that is why I missed it. In my head, it was 2009. I did not bother to look. You are talking about Animal Kingdom.
I am talking about
Mr.
Animal
David
Kingdom.
Michaud, who I just watched. I'm sorry, side note before we get into this. I just watched the trailer for The King, starring Timothée Chalamet, Robert Pattinson, our boy Ben Mendelsohn, co-written by, oh my gosh, Joel Edgerton, co-starring Joel Edgerton, if I'm not mistaken. Trailer looks...
Talking about the King?
Yes.
Yeah.
Trailer looks good. I'm pretty excited. I was not. We can get into the rest of Michaud's work. Sorry, let's talk about Animal Kingdom before we do anything else. Go ahead.
Yeah, Animal Kingdom, man. Let's talk about just honestly, surprisingly, you watch it and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to love this movie, and then you end it and you're like, nope, loved it every second of it.
And a real discovery point for, like, I would say 3 or 4 different, like, I'd probably seen Edgerton and stuff, but not completely registered him. He'd been around for a little while.
I mean, when you're talking about people that absolutely shine, Jackie Weaver.
Yes,
shines.
First time I'm ever seeing her in anything, and of course, this is
Joel
my introduction
Edgerton.
to Ben Mendelsohn. And Edgerton, like I said, he had been in stuff, obviously, but he was not a known quantity to me at that point. The main reason I even watched the movie and was aware of it is because I'm a Guy Pearce guy. Like, I'll pretty much watch anything that guy does. Yeah, so that was my gateway into it. Dude, I in fact, I can honestly say not a great movie, but when I was like, what 11, 12 when that movie came out, I thought it was great, and I did in fact own a DVD because I asked for it for Christmas, and it's still somewhere in the collection. I will tell you, I own the Time Machine. Co-starring Samantha Mumba. If anybody remembers who that is.
No one does.
She was a pop princess, dude, for about 6 months.
Yeah, no, Jack, you get
during
Jackie
those
Weaver,
6 months, the Time Machine was made. Sorry, continue.
You get Ben Mendelsohn.
Ben Mendelsohn as I will nominate
just skeezy, like just
I will nominate
terrible
that
dude.
Character for we should maybe work through this, and we can go back to this when we do our performance episode, some like subcategories, but I will go ahead and nominate Ben Mendelsohn as one of the best villains of the decade in
which
Animal
makes
Kingdom.
It so frustrating when you watch him in movies like The Dark Knight Rises,
where he doesn't get to
and you're like,
really
you gave
cut
this
loose.
dude nothing to work with, and he's so good.
Yeah, I would like to see Nolan, take another shot, because he does, he kind of builds a trove of actors, that he goes back to from time to time. I would like to see Mendelsohn be one of those guys, but in a more highlighted role. Imagine this. Sorry, we're getting off on a Nolan tangent for 2 seconds. I don't know where he was in his career, but imagine Mendelsohn in Following, the first Nolan movie, as that lead character.
Yeah.
Just elevates that movie to like instant classic status instead of what it is, which is a really, really good first film. But I mean, Memento like completely blows it out of the water. But imagine that, seriously.
You can't even like the fact that you get Jackie Weaver in this role, which is like what's the mother's name in House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects?
Mama Firefly.
Mama Firefly. She's like this, but in a way more realistic and toned down way. But like, she's this when she goes to try to go bribe the lawyers, and she's just like very matter of fact and just right there on the edge, and she is phenomenal in this role. And so, yeah, Animal Kingdom, start to finish, fantastic. Just under 2 hours in 2010. So, yep, that's my number 20. Is Animal Kingdom.
All right, I was gonna say we could definitely just like do an entire podcast about that movie right now, and I haven't watched it in like a couple years. But have you watched the TV show, by the way?
I haven't, but people like it. People dig it.
Yeah, people say it's actually really good. So I don't know.
On like season 3, so it's maybe I should. Maybe I'll dive on in.
I'm curious how they stretch that narrative.
Is it Americanized in the show?
As far as I know, yeah, it's like West Coast, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh well, that's just not near. I mean, it's on season 4.
Okay.
So,
I think my mom watches it. I'll have to get up with her on that. Okay. So, fantastic pick. That gets added to my honorable mentions list because, again, I thought it came out in 2009 because I'm an idiot.
Because you blew it.
Yep, because I blew it. Speaking of which, the movie that was going to be my number 20, Dogtooth, it also came out in 2009. So, I was mistaken. Had to bump it. Okay. So at the 20 slot, not sad to have it here. It was going to be on the list regardless. Inherent Vice from 2014 from Mr. Paul Thomas Anderson, starring my actor of the decade right off the bat. We'll get into that on performances more in depth, but Mr. Joaquin Phoenix in an adaptation of a Thomas Pynchon novel, which I've read about half of. I really enjoyed it. I need to finish it at some point. That was years ago. Anyways,
I read once.
Inherent Vice, a movie I enjoyed in the theater because I'm pretty much in the bag for PTA. He's my favorite, active, living filmmaker. Yeah, I can firmly say that. He's my favorite living director. And you also have my favorite living actor at the moment, Joaquin Phoenix. And I knew I was going to love it before I even sat down. But really, when I truly, this movie started to seep into my bones is once I got it on Blu-ray, and you could just throw it on in the background because it's 2 hours and 40 minutes. It's a total hangout movie. You don't really have to follow the plot. It's one of those you can just kind of dip into here and there. You can, be working on stuff around the house and, I'm going to watch this scene for a little bit, dip into it, and then you're all good. You don't have to be with it every step of the way. But it just became my background movie for, honestly, the first, 6 months I was in my previous apartment prior to this place. And I would throw it on when I was working on podcasts, building stuff for the website, et cetera, et cetera. And over the course of that, I've watched this movie 30 times in the last year. So I love it. It's so much fun. It's if nobody saw it, because I don't think it did particularly well. It did well with critics, but not at the box office, unfortunately. I don't know where this one stands for you in term. Have you still not seen it? I think we had this conversation. You haven't seen it, have you?
Yes, I have not seen this movie.
Suspiciously quiet on the other end of the phone.
Honestly,
making sure you're still there.
Don't know if I will ever watch this movie. It seems like a burden to put on. And I don't know. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes of Paul Thomas Anderson, which can sometimes be wonderful. Sometimes it doesn't tickle my fancy.
Well, this is the closest to an outright comedy post Boogie Nights and Punch Drunk Love.
Whoa. You can't tell me Phantom Thread wasn't a comedy.
I mean, Phantom Thread is hilarious in parts, but I inarguably, I don't think anybody will fight me on this, Inherent Vice, I'll put it side by side with Boogie Nights. It's the funniest movies ever made.
Well, I will add it to the list, Noah.
You need to see it, but for those who aren't familiar, it's basically a neo-noir detective movie with a stoner PI at the center of it, trying to figure out a mystery in the late hazy
Inherent
60s.
Vice.
Yes, watch Inherent Vice. That's my advice
on the list
to other people if you haven't seen it. Just go, just hang out with it. It's one of those.
Unfortunately, and this is an apology to anyone who's ever talked to me and recommended a movie. If you have ever told me to watch a movie or a television show, and I have said I will put it on the list, there is no list.
Yeah, there's not an actual. I mean, I have a list, but there are very few things that get added to that list. Yes,
Joe Schmo telling me you've got to see this movie. It was so good, and I'm like, tell me more about it. And you're like, well, it's a movie called War Room, and it's about how Jesus comes in. And I go, see, you lost me.
Okay.
Chances are I'm not going to watch that movie. Did watch, what was it? The God's Not Dead.
Is that your number 19?
And God's Not Dead 2 combo.
19 and 18? No?
Did not make the list. It was not a 1-2 punch of top 20 movies for me.
Okay. What is your number 19?
This one, if I read the bio, I think you'll get it pretty quick.
This is fun. I should have done this for mine. Sorry.
Teen Miles Morales becomes Spider-Man of his reality.
Beautiful.
Crossing his path.
Beautiful.
With
beautiful
five
crossover, sir. Beautiful crossover. Yeah. It's actually my number 18, but that would be...
There we go. Hey, look at that. Do we want to wait and let you do your 19
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse from 2018.
It is. Yes, that's the one. So let's wait. Let's put a pin in it.
Yeah, we can put a pin in it because God's not dead, but I'll tell you something. Only God forgives, my friend. Only God forgives.
Is your number 19?
Is my number 19 from 2013, directed by one Mr. Nicholas Winding Refn, or hashtag buy NWR. Is that what we're calling him now?
I don't want to. See, here's the thing about NWR.
He is
here's the
a
thing about
hashtag.
Mr. Nicholas. Is
The director
yeah.
who became a hashtag.
Yeah, you can tell me like you think that he's full of himself when he makes these movies, or that they're very self-indulgent. And I will sit there and say I watched all of Too Old to Die Young, and I agree with you. And doesn't make his movies any less good.
Yeah, exactly. It's I mean,
I don't care.
to the degree that any auteur is self-indulgent, like any director with any sort of success who's known for like doing their thing, you can say that anytime they do that is being self-indulgent. Yeah, it's just that, are you a fan? Do you choose to engage with it, or is it just not for you? And you can kind of pick and choose those people. And I kind of appreciate people who are like, no, this is me 100% of the time. Like, I'm not going to suddenly throw you a curveball and like, I'm not the director you thought I was. I am Nicholas Winding Refn. I have certain tenets of my art. So if you're not down with it, then this probably isn't for you. Go somewhere else.
And that's what I think about Too Old for Die Young and Only God Forgives, because they're both very similar. When people are like, I can't believe that's what Too Old to Die Young was, I'm like, that's exactly what I thought Too Old to Die Young was going to be.
Yes, again,
and
because
I loved it.
I could spend just an hour just ranting at Amazon for the way they've treated that show. The fact that it literally does not show up anywhere on their originals list. Their giant banners, like, all over Prime. There's not a shred of that show unless you direct search for it. That's bullshit. It's just like it's going to be trapped there forever. I hope they've announced something in terms of like we're going to get an actual Blu-ray release, because I will buy that immediately, even if it doesn't have any special features, but just to like know that it's there and it's not just going to like disappear quietly off of Amazon at some point and then never be available again. I hope that happens. Okay, back to the movie at hand, Only God Forgives. He's coming off a drive. You and I have talked about this, so I really don't feel like we need to go into too much detail on this one. But it's not what people were expecting, and it's where I basically totally locked in with him, because I was like, I am still totally invested and interested in like trying to pick this movie apart and what it's doing and, what's going on here. I was not, repulsed or repelled by it. I was drawn in by it, and I've revisited it constantly. I think it's an oddly, like, it's such a brilliant economical movie in terms of its storytelling, its visual storytelling, and it's something that he, like, does incredibly in Drive, but I feel like is, like, even taken up a notch in this. And then where he's built to with Too Old to Die Young is just, he's kind of on his own unique level, and he's trying to imitate his, his main godfather, which is Jodorowsky at this point, and I think he's doing it pretty successfully in terms of establishing himself as like, I have my own unique filmic language. Nobody else quite talks like me in movies. So I'm 100% on board with it. This is still my favorite feature of his, and it's my number 19th.
Won't be just a little foreshadowing. Won't be the last time you hear about little by NWR.
I assumed as much. I figured he might come up again. So we can move right along to, again, my 18. Sorry.
Yeah, let's jump on your 18. Let's switch it up.
Your 19, which was Spider-Verse, if you want to talk about it now.
Yes, and this is one of those things that you can fight Gavin about, because he will be our muscle. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is the best Spider-Man movie that has ever been made.
I don't think people will fight us on that one too hard. And of course, I'm not gonna not stick up for Spider-Man 2 by Sam Raimi, because I would say that's right there, scratching at its heels. But and you can also argue, of course, Spider-Verse can't exist in the same way that it does without the rich history, which those movies are a part of, and even the Andrew Garfield movies are a part of, unfortunately. But,
I didn't hate the first one. I didn't hate the first one. It's not bad,
but in retrospect, we didn't need that movie right then, which is why the second one feels so like, what are we even doing here? It's overlong, overplotted, overstuffed. Just everything that you don't want a sequel to a big franchise movie to be, and it still made a ridiculous amount of money. So,
and here's the kicker: is that with everything going on currently, I don't know what the state of the Spider-Man in the MCU will be come December or November when these episodes drop. But I don't care.
yeah, I'm totally fine with Sony having.
I think that
strictly
Far
in their
From
hands.
Home and Homecoming were, were fine. They were fine.
Well, and yeah, I'm gonna sound like a crazy naysayer as well, but I feel like a lot of people have put this forth. I'm one of those people who, like, I really enjoyed Homecoming. The main problems I have with that movie are everything to do with how it ties into the Marvel Universe at large. Like, the amount of Robert Downey Jr. and Tony Stark that we have in that movie. Like, okay, I get it. I like their dynamic. I know people like to see him on screen, but can we just let it be a Spider-Man movie? Like, do we need that in here every, like, 15, 20 minutes?
When I would argue the best
those are my
Spider-Man
least favorite
bits
aspects of it.
Well, and I think the best Spider-Man aspects in the MCU are when he is a part of Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame. Like, those are the moments I enjoy seeing Spider-Man, honestly. So, I'm into the Spider-Verse. That's where we're at. Just look at the cast, man. You've got Jake Johnson, Haley Steinfeld, Mahershala Ali, who will then be in the MCU again. Brian Tyree Henry, who will then be in the MCU
yes,
again.
Exactly. Yeah.
Zoe Kravitz,
also,
John Mulaney,
those
Nicolas
two
Cage,
gentlemen, we could put on our short list for just what a decade for both of them. It's mainly the latter half of the decade, and Brian Tyree Henry in particular had one of the single best years, like calendar years of being an actor that I can possibly think of.
You talking about like If Beale Street Could Talk, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Widows, Us,
and everything he did on Atlanta. You can go on and on and on. But yeah. Anyways,
he's going to be in Joker.
He is going to be in Joker.
He was in, yeah. He's not in Us. I'm sorry, I misspoke.
Yeah, I was going to roll right over it, but yes, we can clearly say that he is not in Us.
I like to take credit.
I was going to say I would love to see him in a Jordan Peele film at some point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So, anyways, that
was Spider-Verse. It's great.
You're 18.
Yeah. So we move back to you for your 18.
Yes. Speaking of weird auteurs, after the family matriarch passes away, a grieving family is haunted by tragic and disturbing occurrences and begins to unravel dark secrets.
Okay. Just knowing how much you love this movie,
the
fact that it's this low, I'm very intrigued for the rest of this list. You are, of course, talking about Hereditary from last year.
Oh, I am talking about Hereditary from last year. I think part of it is because they both came out so recently. Like Hereditary and Spider-Verse, I had a tough time really putting them up.
Yeah, we can talk about the recency bias because it'll come up in a couple slots for me for sure.
But damn sure think Toni Collette put on what is arguably the greatest horror performance ever.
It's up there. It's up there right out of the gate. I don't know if it takes it entirely, but it's up there.
I mean, yeah, no.
We can have that debate in October. I know people are hearing this like 2 months later, but we'll have this debate during October.
But for Ari Aster, if you've watched his short films, because we talked about them on Midsommar,
yes,
our podcast on Midsummer, they're weird. And then, but in the best way possible.
That is one way to describe them for sure.
But this movie, I don't think, one of the things I've always said about Ari Aster, I say always said like I knew anything about him before last year.
Yes. We speak about him as if he's like this established auteur that's like been around for decades.
As I sip on tea with my pinky out,
yeah.
Is that I think that one of the things he does really well is he takes real emotions and real family experiences and puts them in hyperbolic settings so that it is very exaggerated, but the emotions are very grounded and very real.
Yes.
And the way you see Toni Collette interact with her family and dealing with grief, I think is so genuinely relatable. And I think that that's just because of the way that he writes and the way that she performed it, and then you get this crazy left turn out of nowhere in the last act of that movie, and I'm 100% bought in. every step of the way.
And I think part of that, it didn't come into total focus until seeing Midsommar, like what exactly he does. Because again, Hereditary is a lot of different horror subgenres all kind of fighting for supremacy throughout that movie. Like, is it a creepy kid movie? Is it a possession movie? Is it a ghost story? Is it a cult movie? Is it a demon movie? Like, you're constantly just like thrown off guard about like
The answer is
what.
yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes to everything. So he's working in certain tropes, but the things that really stick out beyond some of the imagery in that movie is like the dinner table scene and the Toni Collette performance throughout that you're talking about, the raw emotions, okay? And yeah, that's what you really see. That's kind of his signature at this point once you've seen Midsommar, which is why I'm curious, because he says he wants to make something like vastly different going forward. And I think we've seen some different tones in the shorts, but yeah, he's making horror of a very different type at this point, a very unique voice and just a style that he's definitely, I mean, he's talked about some of his influences, but I feel like for a lot of filmgoers, myself included, he just seems like he's working on his own unique level. I think maybe Robert Eggers, who he's good buddies with, apparently they did a great podcast together that I'll shout out, the A24 podcast, which if anybody listens to this, they probably already listened to that show. But yeah, great conversation between the two of them. I think they are the Tarantino PTA during the mid 90s. That's these guys right now in the horror genre. To me, they're in conversation with each other.
Well,
they're one-upping each other.
I think that you've got Get Out comes out 2017, kind of breaks through and gets horror back into the conversation when it comes to award season. Hereditary gets nothing, but surprisingly, I thought that it was going to break through. Maybe it's a little too weird, but I think you like.
I think it's because
the performances are too good to ignore.
There's a certain movement of the art house horror, the A24 horror movies, if you will. There's a certain amount of like resistance within the hardcore horror community that's, a little more traditionalist, or they have certain expectations. They don't like their tropes to be fucked with that much.
I don't care. I love it.
No, I'm just saying,
just
like
the song.
there are those. I think that's why you will not necessarily see them break through as huge. They're never gonna be The Conjuring, if you will. I never expect that, but I do expect these small scale event, and they've had a creeping success on streaming and like word of mouth, because they are the types of movies that once you see them, you maybe won't recommend them to everybody, but everybody kind of has that one friend or that one, 2 or 3 friends that are like, hey, they like weird shit. I can tell them to go check this out. So, yeah, fantastic pick, sir. Where are we?
That was my 18.
Okay, so we're back, and again, my 18 was Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse, so I guess we're on my 17. From one brand spanking new auteur to another. I'm going back to 2011 for my number 17 pick, which is I'm gonna make up my own. I'm not reading off a synopsis. I didn't write it down, but I'm gonna start playing your game. All right.
Okay.
It's a coming of age tale, set in the 50s. It's also an existential crisis movie set in 2011, and it also tells about the birth of the universe. It's about fathers and sons. It's about growing up.
Tree of Life?
Yes, you are correct, sir.
Which again,
for what, like 500 points?
It yet? Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, 400.
Okay,
but I still haven't watched it yet.
You've never seen The Tree of Life, okay?
Well, I think initially it was one of those things where I think you were like, you got to watch it on the big screen, and I missed it. And then you were like, you got to watch it on a good TV, which I didn't own. And then now that I own a good TV, it's still kind of like.
I tell you what. Text me your address when we're done with this, because I recently purchased the new Criterion Blu-ray, which means that my previous earlier release Blu-ray, which is still great. It just doesn't have the extra half hour of footage added to it that the new Criterion does. So you can have that. Just I'll mail it to you, and then you can watch it. Then you'll have a copy.
Excellent.
Or you'll have a copy that you can sit on your shelf and ignore for another year.
We'll see what happens.
The Tree of Life, it's Terrence Malick. If you don't like Terrence Malick, you probably are completely unaware of this movie or hated. You might have even hated it if you're a fan of his, because it's kind of
Some
become
people hated that movie.
Well, yes, it's kind of become the dividing line of the back half of his career. He doesn't work that often, and then all of a sudden he works arguably too often for some people. He does this. He does To the Wonder in very quick succession, a movie I was extremely excited to see coming off the back of Tree of Life. I did not respond to To the Wonder at all, so much so that I didn't rush out to catch Night of Cups when it came out. Still haven't seen it. I didn't see Song to Song. A movie with Michael Fassbender, Ryan Gosling, Natalie Portman, and Rooney Mara, maybe? I can't remember who the other female lead is. A movie with those actors. Directed by Terrence Malick. Yeah, I have set in the Austin music scene. I have not seen that movie.
No one. It wasn't.
What's wrong with
very
me?
well.
That's what I'm saying. But I kind of fell off. And for a while, I adore The New World and I adore Tree of Life. Badlands was one of my early whoa, this is something a little different. I still shamefully have not seen Gates of Heaven, I believe. I hope I'm not screwing that up. Yes. Not Heaven's Gate. Or what am I? Oh my god. I'm totally screwing up the name. The one with Richard Gere.
I'll look it up.
The one with
for
Richard Gere. Anyways, I still have not seen it.
Den of Thieves.
Den of Thieves, yes. The incredible, indelible Den of Thieves. But Tree of Life, Brad Pitt, Jessica Chastain, this was my introduction to her. It is essentially about his own childhood. It's fictionalized heavily. It incorporates his kind of his Malick editing style. I don't know how else to describe it. It's unique unto himself. It's one of the most gorgeous movies I've still ever seen. One of the best theatrical experiences I've ever seen.
Days of Heaven, by the way.
Days of Heaven. Thank you very much. Days of Heaven, starring Mr. Richard Gere, which I still have not seen, and that's like his kind of undisputed classic. But I love pretty much. I even love Thin Red Line, which is a stretch for some people as well. But this later period, I haven't been as in love with. But Tree of Life was the movie that basically made me like reassess his earlier work, that some of which I had seen, some of which I hadn't, and I wouldn't say he's one of my favorite filmmakers, but I'm always interested in what he's got next. And what he does have next this year is oh my gosh, I don't have my phone in front of me.
A Hidden Life.
A Hidden Life. I was going to say A Private Life, so I'm glad you fixed that for me. A Hidden Life, which is based on a true story. It seems way more narratively focused than he sometimes is.
Does.
And the trailer for it, I don't know if you've watched it, looks incredible.
I have.
I will see it. I'm actually very excited for this movie. So go check out Tree of Life. It is the definition of pretentious, if that is the kind of stuff that turns you off. But if you like philosophical, maybe somewhat up its own ass, but gorgeously shot meditations on what it means to be human, and what childhood trauma can do to a person, it's fascinating. It's long. It does not hold your hand in terms of its storytelling. You really do have to piece together certain things, but it is very much in the style of like something being recollected, and that's reflected in the editing. It's crazy out there. I love it. I still rewatch it about once a year. I just recently watched my new Criterion Blu-ray, which is amazing. I enjoyed the additional material. I will send you that Blu-ray. You just gotta remind me. I'll put it in the mail like tomorrow. Okay. Moving along. You're number 17.
17. Faced with both her hot-tempered father's fading health and melting ice caps that flood her ramshackle bayou community and unleash ancient Uruks. I don't know if I pronounced that word right.
Pretty close. Uruks, as far as I remember.
Uruks?
Yeah.
Anyways. 6-year-old hush puppy must learn the ways of courage and love.
She lives with her daddy in the bathtub, if I remember correctly. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, they're in a little shack by the sea.
Yes. Beasts of the Southern Wild.
Beasts of the Southern Wild.
An honorable mention for me, sir.
Yeah, fair enough. And here's the kicker. I understand. This is where it kind of gets into the favorites. It was a great movie. But I'm a sucker for movies just about kids enjoying life and kids putting up with things. I think I work with kids on a regular basis, and so this movie was the one that just kind of hit me. And so the amount of hope she brings to screen, the amount of raw, just pure emotion that she brought in dealing with all of these things, it undeniably just something you can't turn away from.
And I love these little tiny parallels that are developing. A very Malick-influenced movie in a lot of ways, especially in its storytelling, which is, again, not hand-holdy. Very much like you're just kind of catching these little moments between these people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. And so, that...
I've had this thought recently,
wonderful.
and what is he doing next? Because we've been waiting for the follow-up since 2012.
It comes out this year, and it's called Wendy, and it's completed, but there's...
No date for it yet? That's
Mr. Doesn't look like it.
Ben Zeitlin or Ben Zeitlin, I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
So but here's the kicker. The last time the updated notes happened was February 26th of 2018.
Okay.
So over a year and a half ago, and it said it was completed, and so I guess we don't know when it's dropping. But
okay. Well, I'm seeing, yes, post-production, but I got to get in the description of this movie. I'm sorry. Set on a mysterious island where aging and time have come unglued, Zeitlin's mythological story tells the tale of two children from different worlds fighting to maintain their grip on freedom and joy. Okay. Sounds right up your alley, sir.
Yeah, I can't wait.
And looks like straight up unknowns once again in the cast. So
love it.
Yeah, looking forward to it. It's taking a little while to come together, but there's some other filmmakers I could mention who I've been waiting for their follow-up for quite a while. We'll get into that a little later. Just a tease of some sort. Okay.
That was my 17, Beast of the Southern Wild.
So back to me for my number 16. This might be a cheat in your eyes. I don't really care. Come at me, people, at the ARK of E Network on Instagram, or at the ARK of E on Twitter if you want to yell at Mayfield about my pick. If you want to yell at him about this pick.
Who knows? I might yell at you about your pick.
It's pretty long. It's very, very long. Like over 6 hours long. Is that enough of a description for you to tell me what it is?
A 6-hour movie?
Yeah.
No.
It's over 6 hours, if I'm not mistaken.
Is it like, all right, just, what's the description?
Okay, I'm going to actually pull this one up for you, and I may have to omit a name, but let's see. Hold on a second. Okay, a chronicle of the rise and fall of blank, whose high-profile blank, 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 the extent of American racial tensions, blank, 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 fractured and divided nation.
Is this the OJ story?
This is OJ Made in America.
The ESPN documentary, right? So, like, not the...
It was funded by ESPN.
Gotcha.
But it did, in fact, screen in a theater in its 7-hour and 47-minute glory, with an intermission, if I'm not mistaken. But
yeah.
It did play in its entirety. It was available to see as a 7-hour and 47-minute
You get in
feature.
on a technicality. I get it.
Okay.
I get it.
Yeah, I have it on here. It is the lone documentary on my list. The reason being, documentaries are kind of ever-present at this point, and I feel like they've become way more popular as a genre just in the last decade or so. Netflix has a lot to do with that. When they first launched, they didn't have a lot of original programming. They didn't have a ton of movies in their streaming service, but what they did have was a ton of documentaries. You and I almost don't want to say this out loud, but I'm pretty sure it's not in the decade. Sorry, in advance. We can cut this out. When did Dear Zachary come out?
Last decade. It was on my top 20 of last decade.
Just wanted to make sure.
6 or 7, honestly.
Perfect example of a movie that, like, early on was one of the most watched things on Netflix purely because it was word of mouth. Now, A documentary like that, I don't know if it has those same legs if it comes out, 10 years prior or something, for instance.
Oh,
In
no
the,
way.
in
Absolutely.
the midst of a sea of the genre has been done to death, the format has been messed with. You look at stuff like Room 237, for instance. People have had completely different approaches. This is, by all accounts, a pretty traditional documentary. It doesn't break too far out of the Ken Burns style approach of talking heads, archival footage. It's grounded within the genre. But I defy you to tell me or show me another documentary that is more well put together and well thought out, cohesive, epic in its scope, but also like has the most like fine-tuned detail to it. That's everything from the editing, from certain talking heads quotes into footage. It is immaculately put together. It tells a giant sweeping story that you could never do in a traditional narrative film. It is like truly an advertisement for this is why you don't always need to dramatize history. You can literally just put it up on the screen. It's incredible. It's devastating. It's engrossing. It's the best documentary I've ever seen in my entire life, period. And it's my 16th favorite movie of the 2010s. It's O.J. Made in America by the incomparable Ezra Edelman. I look forward to whatever he's doing next. Okay, go ahead.
So that was your 16.
Yes, sir.
My 16 takes place in 1980s Italy, where a romance blossoms between a 17-year-old student and the older man hired as his father's research assistant. Gross.
I'm ashamed to say I still haven't seen it, but I can still, if you'd like me to, Mayfield, I can Call Me By Your Name. That didn't even come out right.
Nope, that was a terrible segue. But yes, Call Me
Yeah.
By Your Name is the name of that movie. And
if
honestly,
you'd like, I can call me by your name. What?
Yeah.
That's not how that works. Go ahead.
Nope,
Tell me
you
about
did it
it.
wrong.
Rave to me about it again. Why I should see it.
Honestly, it's just phenomenal.
It again. This is not
Chalamet.
like an active protest on that movie in any way, shape, or form. It was on my list. There's always 5 or 6 awards contenders that I don't get to, and it just kept getting buried down the list. I know it is streaming on Stars right now. I believe I added it to my Amazon queue. I could watch it within the next month before it disappears off of there. I'm gonna try.
Yeah, it's good, man. Armie Hammer shows up well. Timothy Chalamet shows up well. But the real surprise that year, probably with the best year of 2017, was Stuhlbarg. He was phenomenal. And I think it's just a very grounded movie that really just plays to the emotions of what is love and what it can be, and whether or not it's this romantic thing or if it's just an experience or what that looks like. But it's absolutely entrancing, and so I think it's absolutely beautiful.
My only real experience with Chalamet so far is Lady Bird, which I loved. That movie's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm looking forward to the aforementioned The King. I'm looking forward to Dune, which he's going to be the new Paul Atreides in. Totally down with that. You mentioned Stuhlbarg, though. I just wanted to shout that out. Another actor who just consistently he is now just a legendary character actor, within the span of a decade. I was going to say, too bad that his best performance comes the decade prior, which would be in my best
Serious Man.
Yes, just insanely brilliant. And that was my introduction to him as well. That movie's incredible.
Fantastic.
And he is a huge part of why. So I need to watch it. I look forward to it. I will try and do that in the next week if you'll watch Tree of Life in the next week. Okay?
I think those are two different movies, and I think there's a different weight to what you're asking.
Okay. Fair enough.
What is it? Luca Guadagnino. How do I say that properly? Did I nail that?
Close enough. Close enough for my ears.
Bigger Splash, I think, is really cool.
And that is the only, or excuse me, not the only. I have seen that. I did not see Call Me By Your Name, and I have seen his Suspiria remake.
Which I get why people didn't like it, and I love the original Suspiria, and yet I still loved the remake. Absolutely dug it.
I gotta be, you and I haven't really talked about it. On a rewatch, it did go down a smidge for me. I look forward to watching it one more time this October. I'm really trying to digest the historical elements and what he's going for there, because it still has not quite coalesced for me. And I don't know if I just need somebody to like sit me down and explain the history of Germany in that time period to me, like in like fine detail, but I'm still a little lost as far as all of that goes. And it's a huge chunk of that very long movie is devoted to that thread. And that's kind of the stuff that doesn't entirely work for me. But all of that being said, I do really like it. Apologies if that's like further up on your list and I just talk shit about it.
Which no, it's not. It's not on my list at all.
All right, so I
still dug it.
I will get to Call Me by Your Name very, very soon. I can make you that promise.
Your next movie, please.
My next movie, sir, is my number 15 from 2015, directed by one Mr. Jeremy Saulnier. I'm not going to do the plot thing. It's Green Room.
Honorable mention.
Yes. I love this movie. I think you and I both kind of agreed. Murder Party is probably my favorite of his. Of course, does not fit into this decade.
Which most people haven't seen. If you haven't seen it, go see it or watch it. It's always on. It's like it's on Netflix or it's on Amazon Prime or it's streaming, and it's so funny.
The craft behind Green Room, I really appreciate the rewatchability of it. Now, it's not a fun movie. It is a brutal, intense, like, you feel like you've been put through the ringer by the time you get to the end of it kind of movie. It totally is. But I rewatch it a couple times a year. I fit it into my October rewatches because it totally functions as a horror movie, even though it doesn't have the traditional like slasher killer at the center of it. But it's incredibly intense.
Neo-Nazis.
Yes, it does. Has great villains. Patrick Stewart's incredible. Macon Blair, excellent supporting role. Anton Yelchin,
R.I.P.
Yes, R.I.P. And again, this was the movie where I was just like, this kid, just brilliant. Like, just I bought every single second of it. I was already pretty much on board with Imogen Poots prior to that, but she's great in it as well. Alia Shawkat, like the entire supporting cast in there is great. And it's just a taut, mean little thriller. It's a single location movie, which I absolutely love. And it just works, and it works every time I watch it. And Saulnier is one. I didn't love Hold the Dark quite as much as I had hoped to, but I did really enjoy it. I enjoyed his True Detective episodes. I look forward to his next feature. I think he's on my short list for like most interesting up and comers at the moment. I think he's pretty brilliant. So yeah, that's number 15 for me. Green Room from 2015. Your number 15, sir?
15,
Sorry.
yeah,
yes.
my 15.
Go for it.
At a top-secret facility in the 1960s, a lonely janitor forms a unique relationship with an amphibious creature that is being held in captivity.
Okay. This sounds slimy. This sounds like it might be a little underlit. Like it might be a little green tinged, maybe?
Oh, it is.
Maybe?
Oh, 2017's What, Noah?
Is Doug Jones in this picture?
Yes.
Doug Jones in this movie?
Is in this movie.
Okay. It's got to be a Guillermo del Toro joint, right?
Oh, you're dancing around it.
I think it's The Shape of Water.
It just might be. Water. Dude, I cried like a baby in this movie, and I saw it twice in theaters, and guess what? Cried both times. Absolutely beautiful. And can we just talk about what is one of the greatest ensembles this decade of Sally Hawkins, Michael Shannon, Richard Jenkins, Octavia Spencer, our boy Michael Stuhlbarg.
You gotta say it like you have to say it like Sean Connery for some reason. Michael Stuhlbarg. Yes.
Doug Jones. It is just absolutely phenomenal.
It's kind of
it's got so much heart, man. It's got so much heart, and it is so whimsical. And people clearly loved it. And at the same time, people were like, "Oh, she has sex with a fish." Like,
I haven't.
Fuck off. Like, it's good.
This is not me hating on your pick at all. I think you and I can both agree, though. I mean, a year later, we knew, like, that shouldn't have won Best Picture. Like, seriously. We know the movie that we're going to remember 10 years from now, and that's not it. It's just not.
What movie is it?
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it later.
Because I disagree. When that movie won, I was all about it.
Okay, no, and I'm not hating on it, but I do kind of have this thing. I think Shape of Water is great. I really do. I don't think it's his best movie by any means necessary. It would probably be like maybe like my fourth or fifth favorite Del Toro. But I really felt like the Best Picture win, as earned as it may have been in that particular year, even though, again, I completely disagree. There's another movie that should have definitely won over it. It should have. But in a year when that was...
I see where you're going, and that actually makes a lot of sense. Because
anyways, in a year when that was going to win, I get it, but did it not just feel like this is the makeup for not giving Pan Best Foreign Film years ago? Because, again, I love Shape of Water, but so much of what I love about it is because it's a Del Toro movie in the way that, like, he is a genre unto himself at this point. In the way that Tarantino is, you know what you're getting to a certain extent. And he can surprise you here and there, but you kind of, there are these tenets that he adheres to. And in some ways, Shape of Water is a bit of a rehash of a lot of the core themes that he's always been dealing with. Now, you can say that it kind of coalesces a lot of them, but to me, it feels like lesser Pan to a certain extent. It's not the same story parallel-wise at all, but I really felt like that is why we elevated that one a little bit more. Great movie, regardless. I did not mean to shit on it. Great
You make
pick.
a lot of great points. I see where you're coming from, and
it's still my number.
Fuck you, I don't care.
Yeah, it's still my number 15. I'm not telling you should move it. I'm not hating on your pick at all.
Here's the kicker: is that there are other higher 2017 movies on my list.
And as well, there should be.
And I still am very fine with The Shape of Water. And I think we'll talk more about it. I'm guessing it's both higher on both of our lists. But when Shape of Water walked away with it, I said, "Yup, totally get it. I understand why that won, and I'm fine with it." So no, I didn't. Yeah,
it doesn't stick in my craw the same way that maybe the movie from last year did. But yeah. Okay, so where are we at? My number 14?
You were on, and we are on the 53-minute timer.
Yes, so we'll say right now, we're going to be splitting this into two parts, and yeah, you and I will be wrapping up when we get to number 11, so, build up to it in a cool way, all right? Just make this, like, the coolest part of the cast if people are still listening.
This is the peak. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Well, I am kicking things off with a bang with 2013's small, little, intimate, beautiful relationship movie from Spike Jonze. It's called Her. It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah,
it's my number
good.
14 on the decade.
We've all got a thing for Joaquin.
He's my favorite living actor. Spike Jonze, one of my favorite directors of all time. I wish he worked a little more often. That's all I'm going to say about that.
It's worth watching.
But seriously, being John Malkovich, adaptation, Where the Wild Things Are, and then this one, which is, I think, the first that's like solely him. Originally conceived, written, directed, like heart, soul, this is him.
Yeah, but then they did the dirty to who was the original voice of the android?
Samantha Morton, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
Before it was switched to Scarlett Johansson.
Did the dirty.
From everything I hear, I think she was okay with it after that. I don't think it's like that. She still got paid. I don't think they like screwed her out of it. I don't know. I don't remember how that story went
but then
down.
you got ScarJo sitting there being like, I was the voice in Her. And this, Miss Morton's over on the side like,
Hey, Samantha Morton,
Could have been a
great
movie
actress in her own
star.
right. Go watch The Messenger, people. Go watch it. Okay. Her from 2013. Okay. It's a movie that on paper and in concept, like you just tell somebody what it's about, one of two things. Either the immediate like chuckle, blush reaction of just like, what? What? Okay. And you hear that guy falls in love with his operating system. And you're like, okay, that talk about, I'm going to need to suspend my disbelief. And then you sit down to watch this movie and it establishes a world where that's not that inconceivable. And the more you start to process that, you're like, it's really not that far off from where like we are. And the way that it's just this like slightly kicked up future, it's so subtly done. And it's just a beautiful relationship movie. It's heartbreaking in all the right ways. And it gives you scenes that you flat out have never seen in a movie before. There's nothing quite like it. I think it's still one of the most original movies of the decade. And it really hits me every time. A lot of that has to do with Joaquin. And it also has to do with the brilliant vocal performance from Miss Scarlett Johansson. Now, I would love to hear the original track. I think it would be cool in different movies like this, Moon, if we just went back and, like, change the voices. And you could just play around with them. And when you get home, you pick your audio track, Who do you want the off-screen voice to be? Could be anybody.
Yeah.
Maybe you turn her into a love story between Joaquin Phoenix and Sam Worthington, maybe, There you go.
Why not?
I was trying to think of the first Sam that came to mind.
And Worthington was...
I mean, who else are you going to go? Sam Jackson, maybe? That felt like that was just too comedic. Okay. That was number 14. Did I jazz it up enough?
I'd go Sam Elliott, but anyways.
Oh, dude. Way better choice.
Yeah, you
Joaquin
jazzed
Phoenix,
it up.
Sam Elliott. Her.
And what is the sexiest android relationship?
Pitchfork calls it erotic with a question mark.
If it's got Sam Elliott in it, it's erotic.
Yes, Pitchfork reviewed this movie.
All right, are you ready?
It's good. Go ahead, please.
My number 14 movie is one that we have talked about several times already.
Oh, you didn't?
It is
we just...
a kind of a new one.
Kind of a new movie. Not record. Kind of a new movie. Go ahead.
It is about a couple that travels to Sweden to visit a rural hometown's fabled midsummer festival.
Okay. Yeah. No, I
What
assumed
begins
as much.
A lovely retreat quickly devolves into an increasingly violent and, as some would call it, bizarre competition at the hands of a pagan cult.
I didn't think it was that bizarre. I thought it made a lot of sense. A lot of good sense. I'm actually headed to Sweden myself. Tail end of the summer. Yeah. Leading into the fall. I'm going to see what the fall festivals are like over there. Maybe they're
those are
a little less flamey, a little less bonfire like. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe they don't burn as much shit. I'm gonna go check it out. You're talking about Midsummer. It's from this year. We did a whole 2-hour podcast about it. Like, go listen to it.
And it's so good.
Yeah, it's great.
It's so good. Yeah, and
it's better than Hereditary. I'm glad you had it up
time,
here because I'm like, it is flat out. It's better than Hereditary. Hereditary is amazing. Midsummer is better. It just is.
Yeah, and at the time we're recording this, the director's cut hits theaters tomorrow. And I can only imagine it just gets even better. I wanted more.
I can't wait. I cannot wait to get this movie home. Especially, you said it's dropping in October, which is just perfect. They know their audience, man. They know their audience. Yeah.
So yeah, we'll skip over that. Midsummer as my
this might sub in. This might sub in for the usual original Wicker Man slot this year, which is usually reserved for the last 5 days of October.
Knows? I could do both.
I could definitely. That sounds like a pretty solid double feature. That sounds like a pretty solid 5.5 hours of your life.
Well, and go listen to the podcast that we did. It's 2 hours long, but like people were like, "It's the same movie."
Yeah,
It's not the same movie.
Yeah, but seriously, you don't really even have to listen to that. I'm gonna once again plug. Go listen to the A24 podcast, the conversation between Ari Aster and Robert Eggers, which is like one of my favorite things I've heard recently. It's great. It's just two guys just nerding out about shit that they like together. It's so cool. Okay. Fantastic pick. I mean, again, listen to that podcast. We're not going to talk anymore about it here. Great movie. My number 13. My number 13. I'm keeping ScarJo alive, at least on my list. That should be a huge giveve. What movie
you're doing
is it?
Under the Skin, Noah.
I love that you go there because I'm about to be like, she had like 8 or 9 movies this decade, if you count all the Marvel movies. And some other stuff. I think this is inarguably her best performance. I just rewatched it like a week ago. Still stands as just a completely singular experience. I love this movie. It's not for everybody.
It's not. I found it very boring.
Yes, you would, sir. I think you need to give this one another shot.
You're probably right, and
because
still,
I
found it very boring.
a lot of it. I think a lot of it has to do with the mood you're in when you're watching it, for sure. And it's a movie that, again, doesn't hold your hand, and it's not really particularly concerned with whether you're vibing with it. It's like, this is the ride. Either get on board for the ride, or you're just not you're not going to have any fun here, basically. And it's not a particularly fun movie. It is a very upsetting movie in a lot of ways. But,
some would possibly even say boring.
I would never accuse this movie of being boring.
It's true. There's some
because
interesting things that happen in it.
It is visually sumptuous. It has arguably the best score of the decade from Michael Levy. And it's brilliant. There's nothing quite like it. I could go on and on about how they shot it and all the behind the scenes details, which are super interesting. If you're not familiar with them, go look them up. I don't have to reiterate them here, but I think it's a definitive performance of her career at that time in her career. I don't think she's had her truly transcendent, oh my God movie yet, but I've always enjoyed her on screen. And I look forward to Marriage Story, which comes out in a month or two, the new Noah Baumbach with her and Adam Driver getting divorced. The trailers look amazing. I could really see that being a really meaty role for her to dive into in a way that she maybe hasn't. What's so great about Under the Skin is a lot of it is a wordless performance, a physical performance, and she's doing just a lot of great work just with her body language and her looks. And by that I mean the looks on her face, not her physical appearance, even though that is a huge part of what the movie is dealing with in its subtext, is the way that we objectify women, the way that celebrities are viewed within society, the way that Scarlett Johansson is viewed within society. It's brilliant. It's got layers. It needs to be digested. It needs to be gone back to multiple times. It is Under the Skin. It's my lucky number 13, and it's from 2013. So, there's a little bit of symmetry there. Go watch it. I think it's streaming on Prime right now, if I'm not mistaken. And go watch everything by Jonathan Glazer, director of Sexy Beast and Birth. Super underrated movie as well.
There you go.
Yeah, that's my piece about it. I think you should watch it again and give it another shot.
Maybe I'll add it to the list, Noah.
Also works as a horror movie. You can sneak it in October. I'm sorry. That has one of the... We didn't do this. We talked about saying, this is the one scene and having the scene from each movie. There is a sequence in Under the Skin that flat out, you've never seen this in a movie before. You've never seen this, period. And it just needs to be seen for that. There are very few movies that can say that. There's a moment about 30 minutes in. You'll know it when it happens. And it just... You can't unsee it. And you'll want to see it again and again. Even though it's terrifying and disturbing. Yeah. Go watch the movie. And you, tell me you're 13.
What will be a polarizing pick, as we've will make sense in a second.
I'll be the judge of that.
This movie is an aspiring model. Jesse is new to Los
Ooh
Angeles.
la la, no debate on this one. It's the Neon Demon.
It is,
Sorry.
yes. And it's
Sorry to cut you off there.
You're fine. Yeah, I think I look at this movie as like a ghost story or as a legitimate like lore story about a demon. And has witches in it, and like that's kind of where my mindset is when I watch this. And it's so fucking good. Like it's so good.
I 100%
and
agree.
It's beautiful to watch and
yeah,
super slow and super by NWR. Like it's
100%. It is, and it's the building block that you need. Again, along with Only God Forgives. Like you can't, to me, you cannot watch Drive and dive into Too Old to Die Young. Like you're asking for trouble if you do that.
No.
But you need the building blocks of Only God Forgives and the Neon Demon, because you put those in a swirl, and that is Too Old to Die Young. But Too Old to Die Young, again, I think is the definitive work of his career thus far.
And Keanu Reeves gets to be such a just like terrible person.
Yeah,
in this
dude,
movie.
it's a glimpse of like what maybe would have happened if he didn't have the Keanu Sans or whatever we're calling it. But like, I feel like that and Knock Knock, like you kind of saw him going, hey, maybe I want to like, you know, just totally trash
be
my
a dirtbag
persona. Like, let me try something different. And I don't. Again, you and I talked about this a little bit on that cast. It's because we all inherently, like, we love Keanu, and we all, like, he's so likable for the most part. I feel like he went through a huge chunk of people, like, thinking he was a joke. Like, maybe he was a little bit of a joke for a decade or so. But has firmly established himself as just, like, everybody loves that dude. Like, if anybody doesn't like that guy, there's probably 5 or 6 people behind them going, like, dude, what the fuck's wrong with you? It's Keanu. Like, but it's Keanu, man. So he can, I would like to see him now play against type a little bit and like do some riskier things, which you could say the entire John Wick character is pretty risky. I mean, it's a murdering assassin who, we totally are on the side of and we identify with, but like he's murdering hundreds of people per movie. I mean, he is, but I'm there for it. Definitely there for it.
Yep.
Okay, that was what we're talking about. Neon Demon, which did not make my list. Again, obviously, I said Only God Forgives is my favorite of his features, and it's already been on my list. I love Neon Demon though; it's like right a notch below that, and then drives slightly down there, and then take I don't know, Valhalla, Bronson, neck and neck somewhere in there. I love all of his stuff. Neon Demon's great. I continuously rewatch all of these. So. Yeah, if you asked me on another day, this might have cropped up on my top 20. Because I did really enjoy my most recent rewatch, which I did right after Too Old to Die Young. So, anything else you want to say about that one, or shall I move it along?
Let's go. What you got?
Okay,
What's the next one?
This is potentially a film that might be higher up on your list. If it is, I'm totally fine with postponing the conversation until part 2, rather. It's from 2016. It's a very twisty movie. Very twisty. It's kind of long. It's got some different perspectives. Some might call it Hitchcockian. Some might call it De Palma-ian. It's a sexy movie.
It's a sexy movie.
It is. It's a sexy movie, dude. What is it?
Dude,
I'm trying not to say it if it's further up on your list.
No, I think this might be, if it is the movie that we are both thinking about, I would like you to say your number 12, Noah.
Okay, it's The Handmaiden.
It's my number 12 as well.
Synergy, sir.
Yes,
Oh, I'm so happy. Okay, this is perfect. From director Park Chan-wook, or Chan-wook Park. I don't know how we say it. I'm terribly sorry. He did have a co-writer on this one. I will not do her the disservice of butchering her name, but Seo Jung is the most I'm going to attempt to say. I'm going to avoid the hyphen in the middle. I'm sorry. And this is based on the novel by Sarah Waters called Fingersmith, which I never did really any investigation into, like,
if I need to read that book.
Yes, how much adaptation comes in here. But you and I just recently did like 20 minutes on The Handmaiden. You had rewatched it recently. I haven't seen it since it came out. But I was within like 5 minutes of that conversation, I was like, I got to rewatch that movie soon because it's incredible. And again, off of 1.5 watches, because I've started rewatching this one with the girlfriend. She had to go to bed, didn't finish it myself that evening, and have not gone back to it. That was about 2 years ago. So, yeah. Where do you want to start with that movie? Because I feel like a lot of people don't even know about it. But if you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, you have it at your fingertips right now. Yeah. It's produced by Amazon, and I would argue it's the best. I mean, Neon Demon, also produced by Amazon. Plug for that. I would argue it's the best thing Amazon's ever had their hands on.
Their little grubby hands on.
People might argue Manchester by the Sea more prestigious, perhaps. People might argue The Big Sick, great comedy. But I'm telling you, this is it, though. This is the Handmaiden.
It is.
If you have not seen it, just go watch it. I don't even really want to like get into the plot details at all because it is just one of those movies. If I could go in cold, knowing nothing about it, I would love to have it just scrubbed from my brain.
I mean, honestly, I watched the trailer and then I saw it, which the trailer doesn't give you a lot to go on.
No, it does not. I would recommend that, and you can read the plot description. But basically, what time period are we in? You've seen it more recently.
Was it the 1920s?
Yes.
30s?
Early 1900s in Korea, and it just... excuse me, it's in Japan. I forget that it's a Korean crew filmed in Japan, in Japanese.
And Korean.
Not that I would know the difference when it's being spoken, because I'm an idiot, but
They color the subtitles differently, Noah, you dummy.
I had forgotten about that element. Again, I've seen it once, but that was enough to get it on this list at this point because, again, it is a movie about perspective. And it's a twisty little mystery, crime, caper, who's conning who sort of movie. But done...
I think it's...
What?
It's the quote from Forgetting Sarah Marshall when the kid from 30 Rock, what's the
Jack McBrayer.
Jack McBrayer. When he talks about the show that Sarah Marshall's on, he's like, it mixes the sex and the violence, and I like it. That's how I feel about this movie. That's to me is like, he was talking about The Handmaiden.
It has a true eroticism to it, the likes of which you have not seen in American movies since like the mid 80s and 90s, like sex thrillers, like your Fatal Attractions, your Basic Instincts. Like this movie has heat to it. It genuinely does. And that's a little crazy coming from the guy who made Old Boy, the guy who made Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, the guy who made Lady Vengeance, Stoker, which has tons of like really uncomfortable sexuality to it. But
and I still haven't seen the show. I still haven't seen his.
I still have not seen Little Drummer
AMC
Girl,
show.
which we need to watch, of course, as we said. Florence Pugh.
Yes.
Shout out to Florence Pugh.
Shout out.
Yes. So,
Also from Midsommar. Oh, love her.
100%. And she's going to be in Little Women later this year. That movie looks
her.
amazing. I'm going Christmas Day. I don't know about you.
On Christmas?
I don't know about on Christmas, but you know, I'll see it in a theater. Which, if you had told me that I was going to be that excited about a Little Women adaptation, but that cast, that director, that trailer, I'm there. I'm actually really excited for that movie. It looks great.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So The Handmaiden, watch it, absorb it, and then write us about how much you hate us for making you watch it.
Yes, do that
when you do that.
Do that too. So, also, like one of the best on. I'll admittedly say, okay, we're probably not the best judges of performances in other languages, you know. But
I've
every once in a
that,
while,
like, not knowing the language, how like. Is there things that like weird inflections that we don't catch that other people?
Yeah,
like,
it's very hard to tell
inflection.
like what's good or bad acting in a foreign film a lot of times. But I think there are performances that truly transcend the language barrier, like Chun Sik-moy in Old Boy, for instance, and like every single actor in The Handmaiden, particularly the three main leads, who I would just nominate as like just one of the best ensembles of the decade, because it's one of those movies that does not work if you remove any element from it, and they are all just at the top of their game the entire time. Such a good movie. I think that's what I'm rewatching as soon as we wrap this up, which we will do very, very soon. Okay, so we had synergy there. Do you want to go with your 11, or do you want me to close out part 1 of our discussion?
You just asked the same question. You asked me if I want to give my 11, and then do you want to close it out, which would be me still giving my 11 first.
So what? Yeah.
So let's.
Okay.
I'll give the 11 first.
Okay, so let's do that.
Because you didn't give me a choice. No, it was a fake
This
choice.
is why we need to wrap up soon.
You tried to fool me. I'm gonna go with with a movie that's about. The synopsis should give it away. Toys are mistakenly delivered to a daycare center instead of the attic right before Andy leaves for college. And it's up to this character to convince the other toys that they weren't abandoned and try to return home.
What are Andy's toys doing at a goddamn daycare? More importantly, what are they doing in a landfill about to get incinerated? I believe that movie would be Toy Story 3.
Yes.
Yes.
That is the one. It's do I need to talk about it? Everyone and their mother has seen this movie.
Yeah.
And everyone and their mother thinks it's, a 10 out of 10.
So it's great. I actually think that the first two, in retrospect, I think the emotion clouded it a little bit with the third one. There's also the factor, I haven't seen 4, but kind of knowing that the story goes on, it takes a bit of the emotional punch of the finality of that one away. On rewatches,
Sure.
I feel like, where it felt like a really great final chapter, but then the idea of like, no, but there's still some, they're gonna do another one.
But we can milk this.
Yeah, and again, I haven't seen 4. I've heard mixed reactions about it.
4
I will
is
see
good.
it whenever
4
it's
is
streaming.
a good movie. It is not any of the first 3 trilogies, or the first
See,
trilogy.
and again, that's my thing, is I think 3, like, again, at the time and in the theater, completely devastated, bawling like a child, of course. It totally worked on me. But on rewatches, when they get out of it and you know where it's headed and everything, it's more of just, oh, this is another adventure with them. And I really enjoy it, but the first 2 are incredible. Like, and again, they're not part of this decade, so obviously we're not having that conversation. But I mean, saying that it's the third best in a 4-movie franchise, and it's still worth being on this list, I'm not going to argue with you there, because it is a great movie.
See, here's where I'm going to say, Toy Story 3 is the last Jedi of the Toy Story series. And I say that because it is the best movie of the franchise. That's how I'm going to end my time on this podcast.
That sounds like that could be a podcast in and of itself. Okay. Before people start jumping through their headphones to strangle you.
Sorry, if you, again, remember, if you
11.
disagree with me or want to argue, Gavin Blanchard is willing to fight you at a Food Lion parking lot.
Of your choosing.
Your choosing.
Yes.
And if you want to make it a Piggly Wiggly parking lot,
you gotta
make
find
that
one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are they still around, or are they dead? Are they gone?
They're hanging on by the skin of their snout. Or something like
Big
that.
Bad Wolf came in and blew their house down.
Yeah, let's stop with the clunky metaphors, and I'm going to give my number 11, and we're going to wrap this thing up. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Let's.
My number 11 is also kind of a new movie.
Kind of a new movie.
So new, I saw it like less than a month ago. I'm struggling with just like what I want to say about this and how I want to sell it. But all I'm going to say, it's from 2019, obviously, and it's called The Souvenir, and it's directed by one Miss Joanna Hogg, who is a complete discovery for me. The other movie that was on the docket to watch this evening before The Handmaiden just like started creeping its way up in my brain, I have 2 of her earlier films saved on my Amazon Prime. They're streaming right now. That's Archipelago and Exhibition, I believe, is the other one that's available. One of them starring a young Tom Hiddleston, who worked with her a lot early on. Completely unfamiliar with her work, never seen anything. I started hearing about this movie, The Souvenir, early in the year. Good response to it. It's produced by Martin Scorsese. It's doing well at the festivals. It stars not Tilda Swinton, even though she is in this movie, but it stars Honor Swinton Byrne, Tilda Swinton's daughter. I was very intrigued by that as well. Okay, and it is ostensibly a kind of a fictionalized autobiographical film about Joanna Hogg and her time in film school. And there's a surrogate character played by Honor Swinton Byrne, and it is just it's about a young woman in England in her early 20s going to film school in the 80s, and she meets a man. They develop a relationship. The young man is played by Mr. Tom Burke, who some people might recognize from Only God Forgives. He was the horrible older brother to Ryan Gosling in that movie. He is similarly intense in this movie, but he's got a lot of shades to him. And the movie kind of
camping a lot, or
yes, the movie's got a lot of layers to it, a lot of different things that it's about, and I don't really want to get into those themes other than to tell you it's a slow movie. It takes its time. It's very much about time and place and emotions more than anything else. Incredibly subtle performances, but two of the best performances I've seen all year. Impeccable direction. She was immediately, I was just like, this is a true, like, unique voice. Like, she is telling 2 or 3 different stories right now. She's telling a story through the dialogue, she's telling a story through the framing, and she's telling a story through just, like, the entire scope of the experience. Again, this is the type of movie that I feel like you could recommend to somebody. They'd sit there and watch it and go, I was bored, or I didn't relate to that, or, what the hell was that even about? This movie just, like, hit me in the core of my being, and I never expected to, like, latch onto this movie in the way that I did, but it's the best thing I've seen all year. I don't know that anything is going to top it, and it immediately skyrocketed to just one of my favorite films I've ever seen, and it's definitely one of my favorites of the decade. I thought about putting it a little further down, and it's one of those movies I just start thinking about it and I get emotional, and that kind of trumps everything on my list, as you'll see as we move into the top 10 on part 2. I love this movie, and I encourage people to go check it out. It is currently available for rent, streaming. I think it'll be making its way. It's probably in Redbox if you want it a little cheaper, but I know a lot of people just like to get stuff at home. I think it's totally worth your time. Again, it's a small movie. It's a character movie. It's dialogue driven. And there may not even be enough dialogue for you, and the way that the story is told might be a little frustrating to you. But I loved the filmmaking. I love the performances. It's The Souvenir. It's my number 11 favorite film of the 2010s, and it came out this year. Yeah. So that is where we will put a pin in it for right now.
Part
so when we come back, I don't know how much separation we'll do on this, as far as when you're hearing it, but when we do come back, Mayfield will lead off, and we'll be getting into our top 10 favorites of the decade. If you want to let us know in between, hey, if this shit is not in your top 10, like, I'm gonna riot. If you want to let us know in the little interim, you can email us, thearkofe@gmail.com. You can yell at me on Instagram at the ARK of E Network. You can yell at Sunshine on Twitter. That's at the ARK of E. You can yell at Gavin, who was not here for the recording of this, but you can yell at him on Facebook. You can ask him, hey, what's your top 20, man? Wait, what, Den of Thieves? Number 1? Is it number 1?
Still haven't seen it.
I don't know. Gotta ask him. Okay. So you can do that. You can check out our Patreon if you like what you hear and you want to support us. You can do so for as little as $1 a month. It gets you access to some cool stuff, our archive feeds, some shows that are not available anymore to the public, and we're working on giving you some new specialized content, giving you early access to stuff, all of that. But you can check us out, patreon.com/thearkofe. Okay, I think that is all the plugging I needed to do. Like I said, we'll be back soon. I think this format worked a little better. I don't know about you, but we get a little bit more time to talk about the movies. We can get a little more tangential. I don't feel as rushed. So I look forward to giving the top 10 its proper due. Rush did not make my list,
Noah.
Rush did not make your list?
No, it didn't.
Hemsworth, dude. Just killing it.
Daniel
Bruhl?
Daniel Bruhl? To be fair, Hemsworth is on my top 10. But for what?
Interesting. Oh, I know. Yeah,
you know.
Okay.
You know.
I if you'd like to do one fun thing before we sign off, okay? Blind guessing, and we're doing this right here because I can cut it if either of us guesses the number one. I want you to try and guess one film that will, without a shadow of a doubt, be on my top 10 when we come back. Okay. All right. Well, that was easy. I'm going to pull one on you.
Okay.
This has got to nail it. Moonlight.
Moonlight is on my top 10. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Good. Fair enough. Okay. So that's a little preview of what's to come as we move in to our this is the big dance, the top 10 of the decade.
I think I hit your number one, though.
What's that?
I think I hit your number one.
I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe I'll switch it.
I don't know.
Maybe you did. Maybe you didn't. You don't know.
No, legitimately, it's not my number one, but it's definitely in the top 10. All right. Okay, this was a ton of fun. We will get to the second half of it very, very soon. I hope people stick around for it. Hopefully this wasn't a total bore. For the movie arc, I have been Noah, and my guest this week has been...
That's me, Sunshine Mayfield.
Yes, that is in fact you. And
Nailed it.
We are going to bid you adieu until we get to part 2. How smooth was that, man? How smooth was that?
Nailed it. Set, ready
Bid you
to go.
adieu till part 2?
Wrap it up.
Okay, no,
Lock
we're
it
done.
up.
We're done. I'm done. That was the end point.